Welcome to Tales of the Tender West, where every sunset tells a love story. Saddle up, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tales of the frontier. The sun was sinking low over the Arizona plains, painting the desert in shades of blood and gold. The air shimmered with heat and silence, the kind that came just before the coyotes began their evening cries. Somewhere among the rocky ridges, a lone cowboy stumbled through the dust. His shirt torn and soaked with blood. His name was Ethan Cole, a ranch hand turned drifter, chased by fate and bullets alike. 3 days ago, a band of outlaws had ambushed his wagon near the San Pedro River. They'd taken his horse, his supplies, and left him with a bullet wound in his side. He'd been walking ever since, half delirious, his canteen dry, and his lips cracked under the cruel sun when he finally collapsed near a line of cottonwoods. He thought it was the end. The earth tilted, and the world faded into a blur of fire and dust. But before darkness claimed him, he saw a face, bronze skin, dark eyes like river stones, and long black hair glinting in the sunlight. A woman's voice whispered in a language he didn't understand. Then everything went black. When Ethan opened his eyes again, he wasn't under the sun anymore. He was inside a round hut made of hides and branches, a wickiup dimly lit by a small fire. The air smelled of sage, smoke, and something sweet, like crushed berries. His wound was bandaged with clean strips of cloth. Someone had washed the blood from his skin. He tried to move, but pain lanced through his ribs. "Don't," said a soft voice. "You will bleed again." Ethan turned his head and saw her, the woman from before. She couldn't have been more than 20, yet her eyes carried the calm of the desert after a storm. She sat beside him, grinding herbs with a stone pestle. "Where am I?" Ethan rasped. "You are safe," she said in careful English. "You are in the camp of the Apache." Her name was Naya. Ethan blinked, struggling to take in his "You saved me." Naya gave a small nod. "You would have died out there. My sister found you." "Sister?" he asked, as if summoned by the word. Another woman appeared at the entrance of the hut, taller, with sharper features and eyes that burned like firelight. She carried a bow in one hand and a quiver slung across her back. The moment she saw him awake, her jaw tightened. "So the white man lives," she said in Apache, then switched to English with a hint of contempt. "You should have let the desert finish what it started." "Naya Tala," Naya warned softly. Tala ignored her, stepping closer until she stood over Ethan. "Why are you here, cowboy? Spying for soldiers? Looking for land to steal?" Ethan's dry throat burned as he spoke. "I ain't spying, just trying to live." Tala's eyes narrowed. "Men like you always say that." Naya rose and gently placed herself between them. "He is hurt. He is no threat. He will be," Tala muttered. "They always are." Without another word, Tala turned and left, her braid swaying like a whip. The hide flap dropped behind her, leaving the two in uneasy silence. Ethan looked at Najee. "Doesn't trust me." "She trusts no one from your world," Naya said quietly. "The soldiers took much from us. Our land, our brothers, our peace." Ethan's gaze softened. "I'm sorry for that." She looked at him then, really looked as if weighing his words. "You do not speak like the others." "I ain't like the others," he said, his voice hoarse, but honest. "I just wanted to find a place where the world stops fighting." Naya smiled faintly, the first trace of warmth he'd seen in days. "Then perhaps the desert brought you here for a reason." That night, as the fire crackled and shadows danced along the wickiup walls, Ethan lay awake, listening to the soft hum of voices outside. The Apache village was alive, children laughing, drums echoing, coyotes howling from afar. It was a world untouched by the noise of towns and guns, but in the darkness, he could still feel Tala's eyes on him, watching, waiting, mistrusting. And though his body ached, his heart felt a strange pull, not just to the people who had saved him, but to the sisters whose eyes told two very different stories, one of gentle mercy, the other of wildfire. The desert night held its breath. Somewhere beyond the firelight, destiny had already begun to choose. The morning sun rose over the Apache camp like a gold coin tossed into the sky. Smoke from the night's fires drifted above the wickiups, and the smell of roasted maize filled the air. Children chased one another near the river, their laughter mixing with the clatter of tools and horses. Ethan sat outside the hut where Najee had tended him, his arm wrapped tight against his ribs. His strength was returning, though each breath still came with a reminder of that outlaw bullet buried near his side. Naya approached with a clay bowl of water and herbs. "You should not be walking yet," she said gently. He grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "Can't just sit around while everyone else works. Feels wrong." Her lips curved into a soft smile. "You were stubborn, cowboy. Guess that makes two of us," he said, glancing at her. "You didn't give up on me when I looked half dead." Naya lowered her gaze, dipping a cloth in the bowl and pressing it against his wound. "The Great Spirit sends people across our paths for a reason. Maybe you were meant to live." He met her eyes. "And maybe you were meant to save me." For a moment, the desert quieted around them. The only sound was the wind sighing through the canyon grass. Then a shadow fell over them. Tala stood there, tall and proud in her beaded leather dress, bow slung over one shoulder. Her dark eyes locked on Ethan like an eagle sighting prey. "You speak too freely for a man in another people's land." she said. Ethan straightened slowly. Ain't meaning harm, ma'am, just grateful. Tala crossed her arms. Grateful men bring trouble. You should leave before the elders find out a white man hides among us. Naya rose quickly. Tala, please, he cannot travel. The wound will open again. He will heal or he will not, Tala said sharply. It is not our burden to carry his pain. Ethan looked between them, uneasy. If it'll bring danger to your people, I'll go soon as I'm fit. Naya turned to him, alarmed. You will not last a day out there. Tala's jaw tightened. Maybe that is what the spirits want. The words struck like flint on steel. Naya's calm cracked. You have forgotten Mercy. Sister, not every stranger is our enemy. Tala's voice softened only slightly. Mercy got our brother killed Naya. Do you remember? Naya fell silent. Her eyes shimmered with unspoken grief. Ethan realized there was history here. Something heavy and painful that lay between them like a wound that never healed. Tala stepped closer, her shadow cutting across his boots. You wear the face of those who burned our camps. You carry their smell, the dust of towns built on our graves. Do not think kindness will blind me. Ethan held her gaze, steady but calm. You've got every right to hate me for what men like me have done, but I ain't one of them. Tala's eyes searched his face for a lie, but found only exhaustion and truth. Still, she turned away. We shall see, she said, and strode off into the hills, her braid whipping in the wind. That evening, the camp gathered near the fire pit. Drums thumped low, voices lifted in chant, and sparks rose into the twilight like fireflies. Ethan sat near the edge, watching the people who had taken him in. They were proud, fierce, and free. Naya sat beside him, her dark hair lit by the fire. Tala will come to understand, she said softly. Ethan smiled faintly. You sound sure of that? She is like the wind, Naja replied. Wild, but not cruel. She has lost too much to trust easily. What did she lose? Ethan asked carefully. Naya's eyes grew distant. Our brother, Toma. Soldiers came to our camp 2 winters ago. He tried to make peace. They shot him. Tala watched him die. Ethan lowered his head. I'm sorry. She nodded once, her voice trembling but proud. Since that day, she swore to protect our people from all white men. But perhaps, she has never met one who looked at her without fear. Ethan chuckled softly. I'm not sure she'd say the same. Naya smiled, then rose to join the dancers, her silhouette glowing against the flames. Ethan watched her move with grace, her laughter blending with the music. But out beyond the circle of light, he saw another figure, Tala standing on a ridge with her bow in hand, her eyes fixed on him. The firelight flickered in her gaze, like anger and curiosity woven together. The drums pounded louder, echoing off the canyon walls. Ethan felt something shift inside him, a strange mixture of gratitude, guilt, and a pull he couldn't explain. He didn't know it yet. But that night, as 2 sisters watched the same man from different corners of the firelight, their fates began to intertwine, and by the next full moon, one would fight for his heart, and the other for her tribe. The desert stretched wide and endless, painted gold beneath the afternoon sun. Every mile Ethan and Naja traveled carried them farther from the smoke of war and deeper into silence. They rode to borrowed horses, the river glinting faintly beside them. Neither had spoken much since Tala's sacrifice. The air between them was heavy with things unsaid, grief, guilt, and the ache of survival. Finally, as the sun began to sink, Naya broke the silence. She used to tell me stories, she said softly. When we were little, she'd say, the stars were the eyes of our ancestors, watching, judging, forgiving. Ethan glanced at her, his face drawn but gentle. Then I reckon Tala's up there now, probably keeping an eye on me, makin' sure I don't do something foolish again. A faint, broken smile touched Naya's lips. She'd like that. They stopped near a small grove of mesquite trees as the light faded. Ethan unsaddled the horses, while Naya knelt by the river, washing the blood and dust from her hands. When she looked up, he was staring into the distance. That same faraway look he always wore when guilt came creeping back. She wouldn't want you to blame yourself, Naya said. He shook his head. Ain't that simple. She died because of me, because I couldn't walk away when I should have. She made her choice, Naya said firmly. So did you. So did I. You think love asks permission to be safe? He didn't answer. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of rain and sage. After a while, she spoke again, quieter. What will you do now? Ethan tossed another branch into the fire. Ain't sure. Can't go back north. They'll hang me soon as I set foot in a town. Maybe head west. Start fresh. Try to make something out of what's left of me. Naya studied him for a moment. And if I asked to come with you? His eyes met hers, a flicker of hope, then hesitation. I don't want to drag you through more danger. She smiled sadly. Danger is what life gives us. Love is what makes it worth facing. Ethan looked down at his hands, rough and scarred, as if trying to imagine them building something instead of fighting for once. You really mean that? I do, she said simply. That night, the fire burned low, and the stars returned, endless and bright. Naya sat wrapped in her blanket, humming an old Apache song, her voice soft and haunting. Ethan watched her, his heart caught between gratitude and sorrow. Every note reminded him of Tala, her fierce eyes, her final smile. The smoke that swallowed her dot when Naya noticed his gaze. She reached into her satchel and drew out Tala's cracked necklace. The turquoise bead still glowed faintly in the firelight. She would want you to have this, Naya said. Ethan shook his head. No, it's yours. She gave her life for you. Ethan, you should carry a piece of her too. Slowly, she leaned forward and placed the necklace in his hand. Not to remember what happened, she said, her voice breaking, but to remember why. Ethan closed his fingers around it, his throat tight. I'll wear it proud, he whispered. For her, for a long moment, they just sat there, two souls bound by loss, tethered by love that neither could name aloud. The firelight flickered across their faces, and in its glow, the distance between them began to fade. At dawn, they packed what little they had and rode west, following the faint trail along the river. The land changed, hills rising, grass thickening, life returning to the soil. By midday they came upon a wide meadow, wildflowers dancing in the wind. A small abandoned ranch stood at its edge, fences half broken, a roof caved in, but still standing. Ethan dismounted and looked around. Could fix it up, he said quietly. Got good water here, shelter from the wind. Naya nodded. A place for new stories. He turned to her. You sure? Ain't much of a home yet. She smiled faintly. Home isn't what's built, it's who stays. For the first time in days, Ethan let out a small laugh. Then I guess I'm staying too. They walked toward the porch together, side by side. The boards creaked under their boots, the sound almost like welcome. Above them, the sky burned orange and pink, the same color as the flames that had once taken everything. But now, those colors promised something else. Rebirth. Naya looked up at the horizon and whispered something in Apache. Ethan asked, what's it mean? She smiled softly. It means, the storm has passed. He looked at her, truly looked, and for the first time since the war began, the weight on his chest eased. They stood together in the doorway of that broken ranch. Two survivors bound by loss and love, the ghosts of the past finally quiet, and somewhere beyond the clouds, a single star flickered brighter, watching, forgiving. Proud. TheMorningBroke.com, and clear, the kind of morning that felt like the land itself was taking a deep breath. Dew clung to the grass around the old ranch, glimmering like glass. A hawk circled high overhead, as if blessing the new beginning below. Ethan stood on the porch, hammer in hand, the turquoise necklace glinting at his chest. He'd been working since dawn, mending fences, patching holes, rebuilding what the world had tried to break. Each strike of the hammer was a promise to himself, to Naja, and to the memory of Tala. Naja stepped outside carrying a tin cup of coffee. Her long hair caught the sun, and for a moment Ethan forgot the scars of yesterday. She handed him the cup and leaned against the porch post. Watching him work, you don't rest much, she said with a faint smile. He grinned, tired but content. Guess I don't know how. Not yet. You're learning, she said softly. That's enough. They drank in silence, the horizon stretching endless before them. It was peace, fragile, new, but real. Later that day, they rode into town, a quiet settlement called Willow Crossing. Ethan had avoided it for months, fearing old wanted posters and sharper eyes. But now he walked straight through its dusty street, shoulders square. Naya, beside him, they went to the general store for supplies, nails, seed, cloth, salt, the small things that made life whole again. The shopkeeper, a gray-haired man with a gentle drawl, looked up and froze for a moment. You're Carter's boy, ain't ya? Ethan hesitated. Was long time ago. The man's eyes softened. Your PA was a good one. Shame, what the war did to folks. Ethan nodded. Shame. Yep. He glanced at Naya beside him. She stood calm, graceful, her presence quiet but unshakable. The townsfolk watched her curiously, some with distrust, others with awe. A young girl by the door whispered, Mama, she's Apache. Before her mother could hush her, Ethan turned and smiled. That's right. She's Apache, and she saved my life. The room went still. Naya lowered her gaze, but Ethan's voice didn't waver. We've all lost enough to hate. I figure it's time we start building something instead. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the shopkeeper stepped forward and set a small sack of flour on the counter. On the house, he said, for your new start. Naya looked up surprised and smiled faintly. Thank you, the man nodded. Welcome home, both of you. That night, back at the ranch, the stars came out thick and bright. Naya sat by the fire, braiding wildflowers into a small crown. Ethan joined her, setting a hand on her shoulder. Never thought I'd hear that word again, he said quietly. Home. She smiled without looking up. It's what you make of it. After a pause, he knelt beside her. When I met you, I didn't know what I was fighting for anymore, but now I do. She turned toward him, eyes glimmering in the firelight. I ain't got much, he continued, voice rough. No money, no name worth speaking of, but I got a heart that's yours, if you'll have it. Naya's fingers trembled around the flowers. You're asking me to stay. I'm asking you to be my wife, he said, not because I owe you or your sister, but because I can't see tomorrow without you in it. Tears welled in her eyes, quiet as the night around them. Tala would have smiled to hear that. Then I'll take that as her blessing, he whispered. She reached up and touched the turquoise necklace on his chest. You already carry her blessing, Ethan. She gave it when she gave her life. He leaned closer, their foreheads touching in the glow of the fire. Then it settled. Weeks passed. The ranch began to live again. Fences stood strong, the garden bloomed, and laughter returned to the porch. The land that had once been marked by loss now thrived under two souls who refused to give up on love. On a bright spring morning, a small gathering stood beneath the cottonwoods. The wind carried songs, half Apache, half Western hymn, and the scent of wild sage filled the air. Ethan wore a clean white shirt, the turquoise necklace shining proudly. Naya stood before him in a dress she'd sewn herself, her smile steady and radiant. As the preacher spoke the final words, Ethan took her hands and said softly, "Guess I only ever needed one bride to come home with." Naya's eyes filled with tears, but her smile never faltered. "Then you chose well." They kissed under the wide western sky, the land quiet, the river whispering like a lullaby. And far beyond the hills, where the clouds met the horizon, a single hawk circled once, a silent sign from the sister who had given everything so love could live on. 3 days passed, and Ethan's wound began to knit beneath Naya's careful hands. The camp slowly accepted his presence. The children stopped hiding when he passed. The elders watched him from a distance rather than outright suspicion, and a few warriors even nodded in greeting when he fetched water or carried wood. But one pair of eyes never softened. Talus. She watched him like a hawk perched on the edge of the canyon, silent and alert, waiting for the moment he'd show his true colors. Ethan didn't mind. He had earned mistrust before, and most times, he deserved it. On the fourth morning, the sound of hooves broke the stillness. Ethan froze mid-step, the water pail in his hands trembling. He recognized that rhythm, the thunder of unshod horses pounding over hard earth. His blood ran cold. Riders shouted one of the young braves near the edge of camp. Coming fast, warriors sprang into motion, grabbing rifles and bows. Children whisked away into the safety of the caves. Naya hurried to Ethan's side, eyes wide. "Who are they?" Ethan swallowed hard. "If I had to guess, they're after me." Dust rolled over the camp as a band of 5 outlaws rode into view. Dirty, hard-faced men with guns slung low and greed in their eyes. Their leader, Clay Granger, wore a black hat and a scar across his cheek, the mark of too many close calls. "Well, I'll be damned," Clay shouted, grinning. "Ain't this a fine surprise? Thought we left you for buzzards." Cole. Ethan stepped forward, heart pounding. "You should have kept riding. Clay, you got no business here." Clay laughed, spitting into the dirt. "No business? You're carrying something that's mine." He pointed a gloved hand at Ethan's chest. "That money from the freight wagon, where is it?" "There was no money," Ethan snapped. "You know that haul was just grain and tools. You killed 2 men for nothing." The outlaw's grin faded. "Then you owe me for the trouble." He drew his pistol, and that was when the Apache warriors emerged from behind the rocks and huts. Surrounding the riders in perfect silence, Tala led them. She stepped forward, bow drawn, her voice sharp as a blade. "Drop your weapons. You are not welcome on our land." Clay sneered. "Look at that. The savage squaws play soldier now." The insult burned through the air like gunpowder. Tala didn't flinch, her arrow aimed straight for his heart. "Try your luck," she said coldly. Ethan moved between them. "Tala, no, he's a killer, but if you fight him now, they'll fire on the camp." Clay smirked. "You're protecting the Redskins now. Cole, guess you've been down here too long." He fired a single shot that grazed Ethan's shoulder. The crack of the gun shattered the air. Before the sound faded, Talus' arrow flew and buried itself in Clay's gun hand. He howled in rage, dropping the weapon. In seconds, a dozen Apache warriors surged forward, surrounding the outlaws. The fight was brief and brutal. 3 were disarmed, 1 fled into the desert, and Clay himself was pinned under Tala's knee, a knife to his throat. Naya ran to Ethan, pressing a cloth to his shoulder. "You are hurt again," she said, panic trembling in her voice. "Just a scratch," he hissed. "I'm fine." Tala glared down at Clay. "Why should we not kill you where you crawl?" Clay spat blood. "Because the army's cumin, sweetheart. They know your camp's hiding a white man. They'll be here by sundown." The words froze everyone in place. Tala's gaze shot to Ethan, fury flashing in her eyes. "Is this true?" Ethan shook his head. "No, I swear I didn't tell a soul. But Clay's men might have talked. They could have led the soldiers here." Naya's hand tightened around his arm. "Then we must leave. Now." Tala stood slowly, her knife dripping with Clay's blood. "No, he brought this to us. He stays, and if soldiers come, he faces them." Ethan took a step closer, pain and shame twisting in his chest. "Tala, if they come, I'll stand with you. I owe you that much." She stared at him for a long, hard moment. Then, without another word, she turned away. As the sun dipped low and the desert wind began to stir, Ethan could feel the coming storm, not of rain, but of blood. Inside the camp, warriors sharpened blades and loaded rifles. Children were sent into the caves once more. Naya prayed to the Great Spirit for peace, and Tala stood on the ridge above them all, her bow in hand, her eyes fixed on the horizon where a line of dust was already rising. The army was coming, and when it arrived, the cowboys' debt to both sisters would be paid in fire. By dusk, the sky had turned the color of rust and ash. A hot wind swept over the Apache camp, carrying the scent of dust and thunder, though there were no clouds in sight. It wasn't rain that was coming, it was men. From the ridge, Tala could see them, a long line of cavalry riders snaking across the desert floor, sunlight flashing off rifles and sabers. The soldiers moved like a crawling storm, steady, relentless. Down in the camp, the Apache warriors stood ready. The old chief Catane gave orders in a low, fierce voice. Spears and rifles were stacked near the outer rocks. Arrows dipped in oil were laid out for lighting. Children and elders hid deep in the canyons. Naya knelt near the fire, whispering prayers in the old tongue. Her hands trembled, not for herself, but for the man fate had thrown into their lives, Ethan Cole, the cowboy now standing shoulder to shoulder with her people. He tied a borrowed rifle across his back and adjusted the bandage on his shoulder. His blue eyes were grim but steady. "If they're coming for me," he said quietly, "they'll have to go through me first." Tala heard him and turned sharply. "Do not speak like a fool. You are one man." "Maybe so," Ethan said, loading his revolver, "but I've seen what your tribe can do. You fight for your home, I'll fight beside you." Tala glared, searching for a lie, but found none. His courage irritated her as much as it moved her. "You would die for a people who never asked you here," she demanded. He met her gaze, calm and certain. "I'd die to make it right." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Tala looked away, her voice low. "Then die well, cowboy." The first shots came as the sun bled into the horizon. A bugle cry split the air, sharp and cold, followed by the thunder of hooves. The soldiers rode in fast, rifles raised, dust swirling behind them. Ethan fired first, hitting the lead rider's hat clean off his head. The Apache warriors answered with a volley of arrows that streaked through the air like sparks. Horses screamed, men shouted, smoke and sand filled the valley. Tala fought at the front, her movements fierce and fluid. Her arrows never missed. Every strike carried years of rage for her brother, her people, her land. She was the storm the soldiers hadn't expected. Naya stayed near the caves, tending to the wounded, her face pale but steady. She tore strips of fabric for bandages, her hands slick with blood and ash. When a young warrior fell beside her, she didn't hesitate. She dragged him to safety and whispered healing words. Then she saw Ethan. He was fighting near the riverbank, reloading between bursts of fire, his hat lost, his shirt streaked with sweat and dust. Two soldiers charged him on horseback. Ethan dived for cover behind a fallen log, rolled, and shot one clean off his saddle. The other swung his saber, but before the blade could fall, an arrow struck his chest. Ethan looked up. On the ridge stood Tala, bow still drawn, hair whipping in the wind. Their eyes met across the chaos. For the first time, she gave him a look that wasn't anger, but something closer to respect. The battle raged deep into the night. When the last of the soldiers retreated, the air was thick with smoke and silence. Fires burned in the grass, painting the rocks red. The Apache had won, but at a cost. Tala limped back to camp, her arm streaked with blood. Naya ran to her, eyes wet with relief. "You're hurt." "It is nothing," Tala said through clenched teeth, though the gash along her side told another story. Ethan came toward them, his hat in his hands, breathing hard. "They're gone," he said. "What's left of M's right and south." The chief nodded gravely. "You fought with us, Ethan Cole. You have the spirit of a warrior." Ethan bowed his head, humbled. "I just fought for the folks who saved me." Catane looked between him and the sisters. "Then perhaps the spirits sent you for more than one reason." Later, when the camp quieted, Ethan sat by the dying fire. The stars stretched endless above him. Naya came to sit beside him, her face glowing in the amber light. "You saved us," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, ma'am. You all saved me more ways than one." She smiled, eyes glistening. "You have a good heart, Ethan Cole." Before he could answer, a shadow appeared behind them. Tala. She stood silent for a long time, watching the two. Then she said, "You fought well. You are not like the others." Ethan rose. "That mean I earned your trust?" Tala's gaze flickered, something uncertain, fragile. "It means," she said slowly, "you have earned your place here. For now." And then she turned and walked into the dark. Naya watched her sister go, worry clouding her gentle face. Ethan sighed, staring into the flames. He didn't yet realize that the battle for survival was over, but the battle for his heart had just begun. Morning came quietly after the storm. The desert sky blazed blue again, as if the night's battle had been only a fever dream. Smoke curled from the dying fires, and the smell of gunpowder still hung in the air. Ethan woke to the sound of soft voices and the crackle of embers. Naya knelt beside a wounded warrior, pressing herbs into his cuts. Her movements were gentle, her words steady, a calmness that soothed even the dying. He rose, his muscles aching, and limped over. "You haven't slept." She looked up, strands of hair loose around her face. "Neither have you." He smiled faintly. "Guess we both ain't built for peace." She chuckled under her breath, a sound so light it almost didn't belong in a place filled with ash and blood. "Peace will come," she said, rinsing her hands in a bowl of water, but not without wounds. Ethan crouched beside her, helping to lift a fallen man onto a blanket. You talk like someone who's seen too many battles. Her eyes dimmed. We all have for a long time. They worked in silence. Every time their hands brushed, Ethan felt something stir, quiet, tender, and dangerous. When the last of the wounded were tended, he stood and looked toward the hills. You ever think of leaving all this behind? Finding some place where folks don't fight? Naya looked at him like he'd spoken in another language. This is my home. I know, he said softly. I just wish the world was kinder to you. She smiled, a sad kind of smile. And I wish the world made more men like you. By afternoon, the camp began to rebuild. The warriors buried their dead in silence, marking each grave with a single stone. Tala stood among them, her face unreadable. The sun caught in her hair, the red dust of battle still smeared across her cheek. When she saw Ethan watching from the ridge, she walked toward him, slow, deliberate, like a hawk deciding whether to strike or perch. You should leave, she said without greeting. Ethan frowned. That what you came to tell me? It is not safe for you here, Tala continued. The soldiers will return, and next time, they will bring more. My people cannot fight another war for a stranger. Ethan crossed his arms. I ain't planning to run. I owe your tribe my life. Her jaw clenched. You owe Naya your life, not us. Something sharp flickered in her tone. Not just anger, but something deeper. Jealousy, fear, maybe both. You think I don't see how she looks at you? Tala said, her voice low. She's never smiled that way before. Ethan took a step closer, choosing his words carefully. Naya's kind to everyone. She's got a good heart. And you? Tala asked. What do you feel for her? The question hit harder than a bullet. Ethan stared at the ground, the truth tangled in his throat. I don't rightly know. She saved me. She makes me want to be better. That's something I ain't felt in a long time. Tala studied him in silence, her breath unsteady. Then you should leave before she loves you more. He looked up sharply. And what about you, Tala? What do you want me to do? She hesitated, the fierce warrior suddenly human, her eyes no longer sharp but uncertain. I want peace, she whispered. And you bring war to my heart. Before he could speak, she turned and walked away, disappearing among the rocks. That night, the wind changed, cooler, carrying the scent of rain. The tribe gathered for a ceremony to honor their fallen. Drums echoed softly, voices lifted in mourning chants. Naya stood beside Ethan, her hand brushing his sleeve. You stood with us when you could have run, she said. My father would have called you Shurja Ud, Dita, Dian man of light and storm. Ethan smiled. Don't sound like a name I deserve. It is the one you earned. As the drums beat slow and steady, Naja turned toward him, eyes glimmering in the firelight. You will leave soon, won't you? He hesitated. If I stay, I bring more trouble. But if you go, she said softly, you take my peace with you. Their eyes met, the quiet before the confession, the breath before the fall. Ethan reached for her hand, his heart warring between duty and desire. Then from across the fire, he caught sight of Tala watching them, her face half in shadow, her eyes unreadable. He froze. Naya felt his hand falter, and though she didn't pull away, she understood. A sadness crossed her face, the kind that words couldn't heal. The drums continued, the fire crackled, and the night carried their silence like a secret it wasn't meant to keep. In the distance, thunder rolled over the mountains, and in the hearts of two sisters and one cowboy, a different kind of storm was just beginning. The rain came before dawn, a soft, steady whisper against the desert floor. It washed the blood from the earth, carried the ash into the river, and turned the air sweet and heavy with renewal. Ethan stood beneath the overhang of his small shelter, watching the drops fall through the morning mist. His mind was far from calm. The image of Tala's burning eyes, Naya's trembling hand, they haunted him worse than any wound. Behind him, footsteps approached. Light, careful, familiar. Tala, he said without turning. How did you know it was me? She asked, her voice quieter than usual. You walk like someone who's ready to fight or run, still deciding which. She gave a faint, humorless laugh. You see too much. He looked at her over his shoulder. Her hair was wet, sticking to her cheeks. The firelight caught the curve of her jaw, the weariness in her eyes. You've been out all night. She nodded. Scouting. The soldiers have set camp 2 valleys away. They'll come again soon. Ethan cursed under his breath. Then I need to get you and your people out of here. Tala stepped closer, shaking her head. You still think you're one of us, but you are not. When the soldiers come, they will look for you. He turned fully now, meeting her gaze. Then let 'em find me. I ain't hidin', while others pay the price. You don't understand, she said, her tone sharp, then softened. I went down to their camp. I heard them talking. Ethan froze. You what? I wanted to know why they came, why they risked crossing this far south. They're not after our land, or our cattle. She hesitated, eyes flicking away. They're after you. He blinked. Tala nodded. A wanted man, accused of desertion, theft, and murder in Fort Collins. Ethan's jaw tightened. That's a lie. I believe you, Tala said quickly, but lies have power when spoken by soldiers. If they take you, they will burn our camp for hiding you. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of rain. Ethan turned away, fists clenched. Guess my past caught up faster than I figured. Tala stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm. You could still run. Before they come, take a horse, head west through the canyons. No one would follow you there and leave you. Leave not. He shook his head. I couldn't live with that. Her hand lingered on his arm. If you stay, she'll die for you. You don't know her heart, Ethan. She'd follow you into fire. He looked at her, something heavy and unspoken passing between them. And what about you, Tala? Would you? The question broke her guard like a blade through glass. Her lips parted, but no words came. Then she stepped back, eyes glistening. I already did, she whispered. Later that day, while the tribe prepared for the next move, Naya found Ethan packing supplies near the horses. Her expression was calm, but her eyes searched his face like she already knew something was wrong. You're leaving, she said simply. He froze, rope in hand. Who told you that? Tala, she said. She told me you're wanted by the soldiers, that you must go. Ethan sighed. I didn't want you to hear it that way. Naya stepped closer, her voice trembling just slightly. Is it true? Did you do what they say? He looked her in the eye. No, but truth don't matter much to men wearing badges. She nodded, silent for a moment. Then I will come with you. Ethan's chest tightened. No, it's too dangerous. I have lived with danger my whole life, she said, but I have never lived without purpose. You gave me that. Her words cut deep, both a blessing and a wound. He took her hands in his and, you don't know what you're asking. Before she could answer, a voice broke through the air, harsh, desperate. Tala. A scout shouted from the ridge. Riders, coming fast from the east. The camp exploded into motion. Warriors grabbed rifles, women gathered children, and the air filled with the sound of hooves. Tala appeared on horseback, hair flying, eyes burning. It's them, she cried. The soldiers. Ethan grabbed his rifle and turned to Naya. Stay low. Stay near the cliffs. But Naya's eyes were on her sister, and in that instant, she saw something strange. Tala wasn't just leading the defense, she was signaling subtle gestures, a pattern in her hands. Naya's heart froze. She recognized it, a code only scouts used when communicating with allies. But these weren't Apache allies. These were soldiers. Her voice trembled. Tala, what did you do? The older sister turned, eyes wild with conflict, part guilt, part sorrow. I did what I had to, she said, to save you. Ethan stared at her, realization dawning too late. The thunder of cavalry surrounded them, and the secret Tala carried, the one meant to protect them all, was about to tear everything apart. The sound came like thunder rolling from the earth itself, hooves pounding, rifles cracking, shouts echoing through the canyon walls. By the time the Apache warriors took their positions, the soldiers had already breached the outer ridge. Ethan grabbed his Winchester and ran toward the barricade. Get the women behind the cliffs, he shouted. Keep the fires low. Smoke rose fast, bullets snapping through the air. Ethan fired twice, dropping 2 cavalrymen before ducking behind a rock. Naya crouched beside him, clutching her bow, her eyes filled with fear and fire. They came for you, she said over the roar. Then they'll regret it, he growled, reloading. But even as he said it, he knew something was wrong. The soldiers weren't advancing like a raiding party. They were moving with precision, like men who knew the terrain. He looked toward Tala. She stood on a ridge above them, issuing orders in perfect calm to calm. Every command she gave, every gesture, drove the tribe back toward the canyon's narrow mouth. Wait, Ethan muttered, realizing what was happening. She's leading them right into the open. Naya followed his gaze. Her face went pale. No, a flash of sunlight caught metal, a soldier's scope glinting from the opposite ridge. In that moment, Ethan understood. The army wasn't chasing the Apaches. They were herding them right into an ambush. He turned and sprinted toward Tala. Call him back. She heard him, froze for half a second, then turned away. The next instant, the ridge erupted in gunfire. Men fell. Horses screamed. The air filled with dust, smoke, and chaos. Ethan tackled a fallen warrior out of the line of fire, then dragged himself toward the ridge where Tala stood. Stop this, he shouted. You're killing your own. She turned, face streaked with tears and ash. They promised no one would die, she cried. They said they only wanted you. You believed in them. Ethan roared, fury and disbelief burning in his chest. Her voice cracked. I did it for nothing. If I gave you up, they'd spare her. I couldn't lose her too. The confession hit harder than any bullet. Ethan's rifle slipped from his grasp. Tala, what have you done? Before she could answer, a shot rang out, sharp and final. Naya screamed. Ethan turned just in time to see Tala stumble backward, clutching her shoulder. Blood spread beneath her fingers. A soldier on horseback reloaded his rifle, aiming again. Ethan lunged forward, fired, and dropped him from the saddle. Then he grabbed Tala, pulling her behind the rocks as bullets tore through the sand around them. Hold on, he shouted, pressing his hand to her wound. She gasped, eyes wide with pain. They weren't supposed to shoot, they swore. Naya slid beside them, her face a mask of grief and fury. You betrayed us, she cried. You led them here. Tala tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Tears mixed with the blood on her cheek. I only wanted to save you. Both of you. Ethan looked up, soldiers closing in from all sides. They were surrounded. He grabbed Naya's arm. We can't stay here. Take her. Get to the river. I'll hold them off. Naya's eyes filled with tears. No, Ethan, go. He barked. She needs you. For a heartbeat, Naya hesitated. Then she nodded, slinging her wounded sister's arm over her shoulder. Together, they stumbled down the rocky path toward the river, vanishing into the dust. Ethan turned back to the battlefield, reloading his last few rounds. He took a deep breath, steadied his aim, and faced the soldiers head-on. Come and get me, he muttered. The first wave hit hard. Ethan fired, ducked, moved, and fired again. But for every man he dropped, two more appeared. Soon the heat of battle gave way to exhaustion and then to pain. A rifle butt struck his temple. He hit the ground, dizzy, blood filling his mouth. A shadow loomed over him, a captain with cold eyes and a polished pistol. Ethan Cole, he said. You're under arrest for desertion and murder. Ethan spat blood. You're arresting the wrong man. The captain smirked. That's for the judge to decide. Then came the blow that sent the world spinning into black. When Ethan woke, his hands were bound, his head pounding. Rain dripped from the mouth of a cave where he lay under guard. Through the fog of pain, he saw Naya, kneeling beside Tala, who lay pale and weak. Tala's eyes flicked toward him. They'll hang you if they take you north, she whispered. I won't let that happen. He frowned. You already done enough. She gave a faint smile, sorrowful and strange. Not yet. Outside, the soldiers prepared their horses for dawn departure. The rain had stopped, and the horizon was bleeding light. Somewhere between guilt and love, Tala still had one last act left in her, and it would decide which sister would lose him forever. The morning broke cold and gray, the kind of dawn that seemed ashamed to rise after a night of betrayal. Inside the cave, the air was damp, heavy with silence. Ethan's wrists were raw from the rope, his head still throbbing from the soldier's blow. Outside, the camp stirred, metal clanking. Men cursing softly as they saddled their horses. Through the haze, he heard a whisper. Ethan. I had turned. Tala was awake, propped weakly against the cave wall. Her face was pale, her shoulder wrapped in blood-stained cloth. Naya sat beside her, eyes red and hollow from crying. They'll move soon, Tala said. Her voice was faint, but her eyes had that same fierce glint he remembered from the ridge. Ethan grunted. Let em, I'll find a way out. Naya shook her head. You can't fight them all. He smiled bitterly. Ain't the first time I've been outnumbered. Tala stirred, struggling to sit up. You don't need to fight them, Ethan, you just need to survive. Before he could ask what she meant, she pulled something from beneath her blanket, a small knife. Its handle carved from bone. She pressed it into Naya's hands. When they move him, cut the rope. There's a trail behind the cave, a creek that leads through the canyon. Follow it, west. Naya's eyes widened. What about you? Tala looked down, her voice trembling but steady. I'll make sure they don't follow. Ethan frowned. You're too weak to fight. A faint smile touched her lips. I don't need to fight, cowboy. I just need to distract them. Something in her tone made Ethan's chest tighten. He crawled closer. Tala, you don't owe me not. Don't do this. She met his gaze, calm, resolute. Maybe not for you, but I owe my sister her future. If you live, she lives. That's enough. Naya reached for her hand, shaking her head. Don't talk like that. Tala squeezed her fingers gently. Little bird, you always saw light where there was only fire. Don't let it go out now. By mid-morning, the soldiers began their march. Ethan was pulled to his feet, hands bound, rifle barrels pressing against his back. The captain rode ahead, barking orders. The sisters followed behind, forced to walk beside the path. The rain had stopped, but the clouds hung low, threatening to break again. Halfway down the ravine, the column slowed. The path narrowed, the cliffs closing in tight. It was the perfect place for an ambush or an escape. Tala caught Naya's eye. One look, one silent command. Naya slipped closer to Ethan, pretending to stumble. In the confusion, she pressed the knife into his palm and whispered. Now, in a single motion, Ethan sliced through the rope and spun, driving his shoulder into the nearest soldier. The man toppled from his horse, and chaos erupted. Ethan grabbed his rifle, swung it up, and fired twice, the echo cracking through the canyon like thunder. Horses reared, men shouted, and Naya darted toward the rocks. Go, Ethan shouted. Rud. Tala turned back, not to run, but to climb. She scaled the rocky slope, blood dripping from her wound, moving with desperate strength. Get her down, the captain roared, but she was already at the top. From the ridge, he looked down at her sister and the man she'd once sworn to hate and loved instead. Naya looked up, realization dawning in horror. Tala, no. Tala's hand went to her belt, where a small pouch of black powder hung. She ripped it open, scattering it across the ledge. Then, with the last of her strength, she struck flint against stone. The explosion ripped through the ravine. Smoke, fire, and rock tumbled down, sealing the path behind Ethan and Naya. The soldiers scrambled, horses screamed, and when the dust settled, the ridge was gone, along with Tala. Ethan staggered to his feet, pulling Naya toward the creek. We have to go. She resisted, staring at the burning ridge. She's gone. I know, he said softly, voice breaking. but she made sure we ain't. They stumbled down the trail, the smoke following them like a ghost. Naya's tears mixed with rain, her hand gripping Ethan's as if she might drown without it. Behind them, the canyon burned. Ahead, the open desert waited, cruel and endless, but free. That night, beneath a sky heavy with stars, they made camp by the river. Ethan sat in silence, staring into the flames. Beside him, Naya clutched Tala's necklace, the one she'd worn since childhood, now cracked and blackened. She saved us, Naya whispered. Ethan nodded. She saved me more than once. Naya looked up, eyes glimmering. She did it because she loved you. He swallowed hard. And you? Her answer came soft as wind. I love her more than I ever could hate you. He reached for her hand, but she pulled it back, tears spilling freely. I don't know if I can forgive what you brought to us. Not yet. Ethan nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Then I'll wait. The fire crackled, the stars reflected in the river like ghosts of the fallen. And in the distance, a lone coyote howled, the last song for the sister who'd given everything to save the man neither could truly keep.